Thank you so much for coming, and I just want to say that I'm so sorry. Our country is completely failing. The federal government is failing its people, the taxpayers. This administration is, I can't even believe what they're doing. It's like they're guilty of treason. I did introduce articles of impeachment on Joe Biden because of how he is failing and not doing his job at the southern border. But it's just worse than that after hearing everything that the four of you have said today. And it is just, it's practically embarrassing being a member of Congress that does nothing to stop any of this, and being here in Washington, D.C., being just basically having our hands tied and having to do, thankfully, thank you for putting this together, a panel, but we're not even allowed to use a hearing room in the Capitol. Can you believe that? I'm from Georgia, so I'm not along the border, but I wanted to tell you about something that was actually in our Georgia news today. This is in the little tiny county of Chatham, which is in South Georgia where Savannah is. The counter-narcotics team overdose deaths nearly doubled in Chatham County last year from 26 in 2020 to 48 in 2021. DEA agent Robert Murphy says the crisis is fueled by fentanyl. They're not accidental, these are poisonings. Murphy says China is behind the epidemic. China knows the chemicals they're sending. They know what the outcome is going to be. The Mexican cartels that are producing it and shipping it across our border know what the outcome is going to be. DEA agent Murphy says protecting kids from fentanyl is their top priority. He says a big part of that is holding social media giants accountable for what people sell on their platforms. He said, you name it, Instagram, Snapchat, and all of them are basically just open drug markets now. Anyone can go online and get it. So this issue at the border that you were just speaking about, Mr. Bensman, talking about fentanyl, talking about how the Mexican cartels are helping produce it, and it comes from China. What is the one thing that we can do to stop fentanyl from coming across our southern border?
I wouldn't say that there's one thing, but I would say that there is a pointed lack of involvement by the DEA. I'm not hearing anything from the director of the DEA in the United States or any of our other drug controlling agencies as to any sort of a plan for attacking that. It's going to have to be in conjunction with Mexican government. There are super labs. Everybody knows where they are. They're allowed to operate in the wide open. There's going to be a corruption problem. But I would attack this, find strategy to attack those super labs and put pressure on them, just like we used to in Colombia with the Colombian government and Colombian and American collaboration operations. I think that would be a great place to start. It's one thing to also pressure the Chinese about their imports, but the cartels unfortunately have already figured out a whole bunch of workarounds anticipating that. So I think it has to be done internationally, overseas, to the source countries for the precursor chemicals that are coming in, but it especially has to be kinetic, physical action on the ground in Mexico. It's got to be U.S. initiated, U.S. pressed, U.S. forced diplomatically. But where's the DEA? Where's the head of the DEA right now?
That's a good question. Mr. Judd, can you tell me if there's any coordination between the DEA and Border Patrol? Is there any kind of, do they work together, and how do they do that?
Theoretically, that is supposed to happen, but for the most part, agencies will guard their own intelligence because they want to be the ones that make the big bust. To go back to your original question, what can be done? I would argue that we must start with illegal immigration, because if we can control illegal immigration, we can then go after the cartels and their profits. But as long as our hands are continually tied with the millions, because it is millions, of people that are crossing the border illegally, we're always going to give the cartels the upper hand to continue to cross our products, create the artificial gaps in our coverage. We've got to go after the illegal immigration first, and then we can go after the cartels.
Let me ask you a question. On my visit to the border, I was told there's only 19,000 Border Patrol agents for our entire border, the southern border, northern border, and both oceans. New York City has approximately 35,000 police officers, just for perspective on how undermanned Border Patrol is. How many more Border Patrol agents do you think is needed to be able to do that job?
I appreciate your willingness to give us more agents, but I would tell you first, let's start with policy, because I believe that we can control the border right now. I don't believe that we need to pass this on to the taxpayer. I don't think that we need to burden the taxpayer any more than what they're currently burdened. Let's start with policy. After the policy, then we can look at what needs to be done after that.
What are the policies that are missing?
We must hold people in custody, even acting in the parameters of this administration. This administration said that the MPP was inhumane, to make people wait in Mexico. So I'm willing to act within their parameters. And I told this to the administration, to the transition team. I told them that we must hold people in our custody. We must challenge Flores. Then we must hold people in our custody pending deportation. The moment we do that, people will start coming. Everybody will argue that we don't have the resources, we don't have the facilities to hold 2 million people. We don't. But the moment we start holding people and stop releasing them, they will stop coming. Therefore, we don't have to throw resources at this problem.
Thank you. The gentlelady's time has
Thank you.
expired. The chair recognizes Representative Bishop.